Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, of course, I am coming to you all with yet another movie review, this time for Mr. Crocket. Directed by Brandon Espy, and starring Jerrika Hinton, Kristolyn Lloyd, Akpobome, and Elvis Nolasco. Story-wise, the film is centered around Summer, a young mother who must embark on a perilous quest to rescue her son from a malevolent children's show host who actively seeks retribution against neglectful and abusive parents. So, I'm going to start, of course, with my pros, and I have to say that this one was really intriguing, and I think there were definitely some standout aspects of it, and I just think I was just really taken aback and really surprised by what this film was attempting to say and the really unique way in which it was attempting to say it. Now, first, something I really did not expect was there to be this theme of grief and loss, especially in regards to our central characters here. And there was something about it that hit a little too close to home for me. So watching that, I was just like, oh. And I mean, down to like the time period, just the dynamics of it. I was just like, oh, okay. This is hitting a little too hard for me at this moment. But I do think it gave the film a little something extra. It gave it a little bit of depth, especially from an emotional perspective that I really didn't see coming. The very clear and obvious highlight of this film is Elvis Nolasco. I was introduced to him in the Netflix series She's Gotta Have It as Popo. I was also familiar with him for his role on the ABC American Crime series, not to be confused with Ryan Murphy's American Crime Story. There are many of you who will also be familiar with him for his role as Nat Pettigrew in Godfather of Harlem. But ultimately, for obvious reasons, he is the star here. He is such a compelling antagonist, such a unique horror figure. And what I also loved about it, along with Elvis's performance, is that there were layers to Mr. Crocket. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm just bad and oh, I'm just evil because. And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes that's just what it is. But here, his rationale, his perspective, like what his goal was, it made sense. I got it. Especially early on, I was kind of like, I kind of get you. I kind of get where you're coming from. And to be honest, it's not going to sound nice, but considering some of the parents we have out there, I'm like, some of y'all need to be visited by Mr. Crocket. And that's no personal judgment. I just know that some people are just not meant to be parents, and they are. And the effects of that are unfortunate. So I just think the fact that he has a genuine motivation and a relatable, understandable motivation. And unfortunately, I think there are a lot of children who could probably look at this and feel like, that makes a lot of sense. I wish I had a Mr. Crocket to kind of take me away from these current circumstances. And again, I just think that gave this something extra. Like, yes, he could have just been an evil, maniacal, supernatural figure, but the fact that he has a genuine, understandable goal in mind, especially when it comes to these children, I was just like, I'm kind of with you. I'm with you when you're right. I would also say I love the 90s aesthetic, the old school vibe, especially for those of us who grew up watching PBS like myself. Shout out to the public broadcasting service. Listen, a lot of us can definitely relate. So I like the fact that it was taking a lot of dynamics and experiences some of us have had in the 90s, especially with some of that corn and some of the cheese, which I'm not mad at, but it made it just a trip back in time, honestly. It was wild. I also thought the practical effects were really awesome. There were some uses of puppets and puppetry and what might have been animatronics, and I thought that was cool. And again, very 90s. We think of Chuck E. Cheese, we think of like 80s, 90s films that made use of animatronics and puppets and things like that. So yeah, it really was just like taking a trip back into time. And of course, as a 90s baby, I'm never gonna get tired of saying that, but it is definitely something I relate to. All right, now jumping over to the cons. I would say the biggest issue with this film, and I'm not sure if it's a budgetary situation, but I do think that you can see the constraints that this film has as far as its scope and its execution as well. I appreciated what was being done, and I was definitely having fun for the majority of this. But then there were other times where the cheese and the corn got to a point where it was just like, now, I know 90s was corny and cheesy, but it also seems to be a tonal issue for this film. I think when it really delved more into the seriousness that was at the heart of the story, that was when it came together for me. And I wish that the emotional thread that was present at the beginning was continuing on and consistent throughout the film, because it just kind of gets intertwined with these other aspects and it never really has the emotional depth again that it presents. And I think that given what could have been done there, it just gets very goofy. It gets very like, okay, what's going on here? So I will say by the end, it kind of lost me. And I also will say that given that this film is trying to say something about parenting and how it can be difficult to be a parent and how, trying to come up with alternative measures for parenting and understanding how important that is, I think the characterization of Major, no. That did not work for me. I understand that children have their own way of seeing the world. I understand even when it comes to acting out. I try to not look at it as the whole bad children, bad kids thing. I get it. There's more to that. However, let me make it very, very clear. If I was supposed to take away from this that whooping children is somehow a bad thing and there are other ways of parenting, and if I was supposed to take that away from the way Major was acting a whole donkey here, then somebody dropped the ball. Because when I was watching one scene in particular, I was just like, Major would have had to catch me outside. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm about to whip somebody's ass. Oh, I'm about to whip somebody's ass.
And I don't feel bad about it because I was just like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Okay? So I get it. It's just a character. I understand what it was supposed to represent. But to me, it didn't work. He wasn't sympathetic. He was very obnoxious. I didn't really see a child going through grief and dealing with that. All I saw was big eyes, big teeth, and a big attitude. And I was over it very quickly. And in the end, I was just like, do you really want to deal with this? Which is terrible. I know it's terrible, but I just think that aspect of it was not handled well. I was just like, no, go away, go away, go away from me with this, please. So I'm going to give Mr. Crocket a C. There were some really cool elements here. I appreciated a lot of what was being done, especially as far as the visual style and aesthetic, and Elvis Nolasco's performance. He was definitely giving his all, and I can tell he was having a really fun time embodying this character. And I do think there's more that could be done with it. And given the ending, which to me was, I'll just say it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, and it was obviously left open for there to be a continuation. I think that could have been better as well, but ultimately, I'm interested in seeing where this could go. The ideas for this, the continuation of it, possibly a bigger budget, and just a better handling on the writing and the tone. I think this could be something special. I still appreciated what was done, but I don't think it stuck the landing, and it didn't keep the consistency of what it presented throughout the film. So that was frustrating, but I still enjoy seeing black horror, and especially black horror that is not tied to racial trauma. So for that alone, I have to say I was very grateful for this film. It definitely was giving me Bad Hair, which also aired on Hulu just a few years ago. You know, we're getting there. And I am definitely interested in seeing where things could go in this lane as far as black horror and even Huluween. If we keep it up, we could really get some solid stuff coming out of this. And I would absolutely be here for that. Mr. Crocket is currently streaming on Hulu. You guys are free to check it out. Leave your thoughts below and let me know what you think. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off. And I'll see you at the movies.